Okay, let's talk sleeves. So here we are at the end of the sleeve cap from last week. What I'm going to do, and this is the same regardless of whether you're working the cardigan or the sweater, there's a setup row or two, which will start working in this round. If I say row, I mean round when it comes to the sleeves. So setup row, setup round. I get them mixed up. So let's just put that out there. For the sleeves, you're going to be working in turned rounds. So you crochet in the pattern round, join, turn around and go the other way. Now the sleeve decreases, you can see I've made a start on this side. You're going to work in pairs of decrease rounds. The reason for this is to get the decreases on the stitch pattern. I'm going to decrease by 2 stitches at the beginning of the row or round. Then the next round I'm going to turn and I'm going to work two stitch decreases at the start of the next round. What this does, so always making your decreases at the start of the round and working those rounds in pairs, it means you're going to get an even number of decreases either side of where you join the seam, which will be at the underarm. So you can see here's my underarm join. When you are working with variegated yarns in rounds, you will sometimes get a bit of a, because when you turn you'll work that way, so you will sometimes get a bit of a colour clash there, for want of a better way of putting it. But with this yarn, I don't think it's going to be too much trouble because it's quite highly variegated and you know it will be at the underarm anyway. Different sizes, different patterns have different cadences of how they decrease. The cardigan has a more highly tapered sleeve, so it is a skinnier sleeve, it's got less positive ease. The sweater has a slightly more relaxed sleeve, so there are fewer decreases in the sweater. Regardless of the shape you're working, you'll work a number of decrease rounds, as I said, always in pairs, and then non-decrease rounds. I highly encourage you to use stitch markers to mark your second of the decrease rounds so you can count the number of non-decrease rounds between them, because it can be very easy to lose count. And especially if you're working with a variegated yarn, it can actually be quite hard to see where the decreases are, which is great when you're wearing it, not so great when you're trying to look back for the decreases. Okay, so here I've done one set of decreases in this size. In the sweater I've got a six round repeat, which comes in quite handy because I'm working 12 rounds of each colour. So I finished the sleeve cap short rows with 3 rounds, then I worked 3 rounds for the setup row, which actually by chance when I chose the colour thickness left me with 6 rounds for my first decrease section. That's going to make it a lot easier for me to count without stitch markers, because I know I'll have 2 decrease sections per stripe. Now if you do want to change the shaping of your sleeve, so maybe you want it narrower at the cuff, maybe you want it wider. I sounded drunk when I said narrower there, promise I'm not. I have a blog post which explains sleeve shaping, and it will talk about different ways you can approach calculating how to adjust the cadence of your decrease. Obviously we're working shoulder to cuff on this sleeve, so unless you want a balloon or you want it to increase in size, you're going to be decreasing towards the cuff. Loads of options here if you do like to freestyle it. I will pop a link to the sleeve shaping post in the comments below. So time for a quick sleeve update. I've finished my decreases on this side here. Let's move that out of the way. So I worked 5 sets of decreases in this size and pattern. The cadence of the decreases will differ with your size and with whether you're working the cardigan or the sweater. So I worked 1 set of decreases here, 2 in this section and 2 in this section. And then for the rest of the sleeve, as I've started on this side, I'm going to keep working without decreasing, and then I will get to the cuff. which I'll come back and show you. So I've got one more set of 12 rows in the variegated yarn to work, and that's going to take me about 4 rows longer than the pattern. So fortunately for me, my choice of how many rows per stripe worked out quite well. In the sweater, the sleeves stop just before my wrist, so I've got some flexibility there. Obviously I've also got the cuff to add, so I'll add about that much more, and then about 1 inch or so in the cuff. So I'll come back when I finish the sleeves and show you my progress on the cuff. So I have finished my sleeves on both sides. I've added the cuffs as in the pattern I went down a hook size, so this is a 3.5. Need to check I've got that right. So I used the 3.5 hook just to get a tighter finish on these cuffs, which I really like. This is still the wrong side. Look at all those ends. This was the yarn, this was the Rivenets yarn that I used for the cuffs. I'm going to be using it for the hem and the neckline, which is next week. Now before I wrap up, I just want to compare the sleeves with the cardigan. So the cardigan sleeves are a little bit longer. I've also worn this cardigan quite a lot, so I have probably gained some length in that sleeve. You can probably see, if I lay this on top, one sec. So you can see that the cardigan sleeve is quite a lot narrower. I mean, it's a finger width, so double finger width, but it is a tighter fit than the sweater sleeve. Now bear in mind, I haven't blocked these sleeves, so these are going to increase in size, probably more in length than in width, but they will increase a bit with blocking as the body did. I have similar cuffs on both, and I think that's all I want to say about sleeves. Next week we are going to be looking at the hem. I'm going to talk you through the button band for the cardigan. This so the cardigan uses a slightly different technique to create this ribbing on an angle. So rather, when you do typical ribbing like this, for example, you work at right angles. This ribbing, which is a little bit hard to see on this picture on this colour, but if I show you there, the ribbing kind of goes at a 45-degree angle to the neckline, so it's basically vertical. So the technique for that is all written in the pattern, but I will talk a little bit more about that. In the meantime, I'm going to tidy up this mess. I'm going to have a quick fit check, and I'm going to start on the neckline. So end to side, I just want to say something about trusting the process. As I just showed you the comparison of the cardigan, you can see these sleeves are pretty short, but they're unblocked. So I know when I block these, they're going to quite easily end up around there. This is why it is good to take your pre-blocked and blocked gauge, because that really helps you trust the process. Because I could be like, oh my God, they're too short. And then, sorry, obviously one of my hairs, and then add a load more rows, and then I block it, and then they're too long. So I just wanted to say that. Beyonce called, she wants her fringing back.